age heaping, and we had discussed it as uh, tendency by respondents to report their ages to round their numbers to the nearest possible numbers, and you can be able to see that we said the tendency of to round their ages to the nearest 5 and possibly 10. And we were able to say that many people most times prefer the numbers 0 and 5. And then we were able to understand that sometimes the possibility as to why people might report these ages is because sometimes of cultural issues. For example, certain cultures possibly have different associations with the figures. And we said, for example, in the West, 13 and then 4 in the East Asia are numbers that are specifically avoided. So age 0 is often underreported because people regard 0 as no age. And therefore, most people, parents, don't normally report the age in months. So we went ahead to understand what the different methods for correcting age heaping are, and uh, we went ahead to look at one, the Whipple's index, and then two, the Myers blended index. But as I had promised that we shall be able to look at these calculations in Excel, but also when we avail a data set of the census. And that is what I want us to look at today. We shall be able to look at how the calculations can be done using Myers index, but also before we go in there, you should be able to understand the interpretation that for the Myers index, the if the index ranges from 0 to 100, 0 indicates no age heaping, and then 100 indicates extreme age heaping. And the MBI can be used to adjust the age distribution of a population by applying a smoothing function that reduces the peaks and fills the gaps. Then we also had the interpretation of the Whipple's index, and we were able to interpret uh, that for the Whipple's index, the Whipple index ranges from 100 to 500, where 100 indicates no age heaping and 500 indicates complete heaping. So the Whipple's index can be used to correct the age data by applying a proportional redistribution. So I want us to look at an example here of the Myers index, and I hope we can be able to see that on my screen. Can you
Yes,
confirm you can be able to see that?
yes, yeah, you can see.
Okay. So this is what we call the Myers index. This is what we call the Myers index, and most times we are provided with this data. You can be able to see what we call from column 1 here. You can be able to see what we call the terminal digit, and our terminal digit is numbers 0 to 9, and these are what we call single ages or single years in demography. So we have the age 0, we have the age 1, we have the age 2, we have the age 3, we have the age 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Then here we have what we call population with the terminal digit A. And we're saying here our terminal digit, the population we're getting here for our terminal digit A is we're getting terminal digit 10 plus A, meaning here these are populations for the ages starting from 10, 11, 12, where you're able to see 10 plus A. And if this is A, if this particular figure, hopefully you're seeing that cursor there. If the population figure here is if the digit is A, then 10 plus A will give us 10. Then 10 plus 1 will give us the population people who reported 11, who reported 12, who reported 3, 13, sorry, who reported 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. If you were to see the next column, you're also able to see that it starts from 20 plus A. So 20 plus A will give us 20, 20 plus A will give us 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25, as you can see here. So these are now in standardization. You're supposed to do what they call when we are discussing the Myers blended index. We're supposed to do what they call weighting, and these are the weights. These are the column weights, where we column the weights from ascending and then from a descending order. And that is why you're able to see the first weights for the column 1 ascending from 1 to 10, then the other for column 2 starting from 0 to 3. So when you're calculating the blended index, you first get what we call the blended population, or what people refer to as standardization. And in doing standardization, this figure is what we call the standard figure. These figures here, these population figures. And how do you get them? You get them from to get your blended population, you get it by multiplying your population in column 1, which is this. You multiply 1 by the weight here that is in column 1. So that's why I'm putting here, you're multiplying 1 by 3. So you multiply 5 by 1 to give you that particular figure in there. Then you add it to 2 by 4. Sorry, this is supposed to be 4 here. This particular figure here is supposed to be 4. So you multiply, and when you get the summation, you're able to get these figures. And that is why we have 43 million and this. So to type in the formula in Excel, this, if you have access to Excel, this can be computed. That is why you're seeing a formula here, where you're putting equals to sum times equals to sum in brackets, the D5 times F1, F5 plus, you can be able to see plus, this is E5 times G5. So then if you're using Excel, you're able to drag, and all these figures are automatically computed because they are automatic symbols you can use, or formulas you can use in Excel. So secondly, or thirdly, in your blended population, you now want to understand what the percentage distribution of these figures are. And to do that distribution, what you do is from the total, you subject every age group's population to the total age group here, to the total population. So we shall be subjecting this figure for 43 million 09517 to 374 million, and then you multiply it by 100, and if you multiply it by 100, it gives you 11.52. So it means 11.52 people reported their ages between having zeros and either a 10 or a 20. So it meaning out of this total population of people reporting their ages, 11.5 of them reported their age ending with the 0. Similarly, you can be so, as an analyst, your eyes should be here. UI should be in these two figures here. You see, if you're to see what we're discussing, that the tendency of individuals to report their ages in 0 and 5. So if you can be able to see 0 and 5 here, you realize that they are the ones holding almost the highest position in the distribution of ages by percentage. That's why you can be able to see here that we have 11.52 and then 10.68 for ages that are 0 and 5 reported in that manner. So then we want to understand what the deviation of what is the deviation from 10, because remember we said that the key uh, in Myers blended index, he looks at 10 as the standard unit, and therefore we are trying to look at what the deviation of the general percentage distribution is from 10. That is why we have these figures, and therefore if you subtract this figure from here, you will be able to get 1.52, you'll be able to get 0.53, 0.24, 0.57, 0.17, and so forth and so on. And if you add the deviation of the percentage, you're able to get a total of 4.68. And therefore, if you subject to in for you to calculate the index, you subject the total deviation of the percentage and divide it by 2, and that is why it is giving us the figure 2.34. And therefore, from our interpretation, this data set was for Philippians 1999, and therefore, from what we just a minute, my screen is delaying here a little bit. So from what we discussed and our discussion ranging that the Whipple's I mean the Myers index ranges from 0 to 100, you can be able to see that there was a minimal uh, heaping, because our figure there is 2 point something, but it's not as high as 50 or something else. So that is how the Myers index is calculated. I hope if there are any questions regarding that, we can discuss them. After I've finished the presentation. So lastly, we want to look at another method, and that is what we call the Whipple's index. And when you're doing the Whipple's index, so you can be able to see here. These are now the populations. These are populations of single years that were reported. The disadvantage of using these methods is that they measure data. They only measure edge heaping in single years. So for data that has cohort measures, it is always not possible to use these two methods in measuring edge heaping. So you can be able to see here we have the population that reported under 1, then we have the population that reported from 1 year, and we have up to 100 years. I hope you can be able to see that. If not, let me just zoom a little bit. Let me just zoom a little bit here. So you can be able to see that we have data for up to about 100 years, and therefore, if you got the total of all these people from under one up to the 100 people, the country boasts of about 60,559,116 people. Therefore, the method of calculation, the method of calculating the Whipple's index is that you get the summation, meaning uh, you're adding all numbers from 23 years. You're adding all figures that were reported. Unfortunately, the Whipple's index only looks at from the is calculated using the summation of ages 23 to 62. So if you're to see from this particular figure here that you're seeing this formula, this is the formula that is used for calculating the Whipple's index. This formula here, it is that you add the summation of the populations that reported their figures in 5 and 0. So if we are looking at the population, if you're looking at a population starting from 23 years to 62 years, you should be able to come to your data set here and start adding figures. So in that formula, you do not add figures starting with 23, because you're looking at figures that are ending with 5 and 0. And therefore, because you're looking at a specific age group when using the Whipple's index, you start from 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, and then 60. Because it only looks at that particular age range. It does not apply to every other age range. So that is why the formula is clearly stating it here that you start from, sorry, this was mistyped here. So you start from the population, you add the total populations for people who reported ages 25 up to 60, following the command of 5 and 0. Then you divide it by the summation, a fifth. This figure here is 1 out of 5. You divide it by 1 out of 5 of the summation of the population of people in 23 to 62. So what, in other words, we are saying here is that you subject, for example, is equals to sum, in brackets, we want to get people who reported age 5 plus people who reported age 30 plus people who reported age 35 plus, sorry, plus, oh, is equals to sum, is equals to sum, in brackets, I want to look at the age 25 plus the age 30 plus the age 35 plus the age 40 plus the age 45 plus the age 50 plus the age 55 plus the age 60. Close brackets, enter. So here you can be able to see our figure. So this is the total, this is the summation of people who reported that particular age. So you then subject this over the number of the total number of people between the ages 23 to the ages 62. So you will be summing from the age 23 up to the age 62. close brackets, enter. So you can be able to see that is the figure we have in there for the total number of people who are who are who are who are aged from 23 to 60 to 62. So it is this figure of 0. Of 223 million that you're supposed to subject supposed to subject to you're supposed subject uh, to 1 out of 5. So to be able to get 1 out of 5, 1 out of 5 is like 0.2, not so. So if you got 0.2 and multiplied it by this figure, uh, we should be able to give you around that figure 4.8, 4.78, about there. But if you round it off, it will give you about that figure. So if you divided this is equals to this divided by this figure, you'll be able to get that. And then if you multiply it by 100, you will get 112. So to get 112, we said that our Whipple's index uh, ranges from the figures 100 to 500. 100 explaining that there's no heaping, and 500 explaining that there's extreme heaping. And therefore, from that 112, you can be able to deduce that the Philippine census had data that was not extremely heaped in there. So that is briefly what I wanted us to understand in terms of practically being able to calculate those two methods. Unless we have any questions, that is actually why I thought we would have this short engagement. Do we have any questions? Yes, Thomas.
Yes, thank you. I think mine is not questions, but actually it's a nice lecture of which which needs a lot of uh, bit of time to capture on how we should calculate this uh, data. So also put in place that if maybe you can repeat maybe part of it, because I personally did not capture it well on how to calculate this. So that is just my request. I don't know, may not be now, but I think maybe you can also organize one of the day to also repeat for us. Thank you.
Okay. Any other question? Hopefully.
Yeah, I think is what I just wanted to add is not far from what Thomas have said. This required, especially the second part, the second formula, it is a bit need some repetition so that we can able to really at least pick something.
Okay. So probably you can as well share with your colleagues who have been able to understand. They can be able to help you, but as well, if you find any other challenges, it is always very possible to reach me, and I can be able to guide you a few times in there on how we can be able to calculate. But just to give you a simple repetition on what we call the Whipple's index, the populations are listed by single years, meaning we have people who report their ages ending with 1, but also we have people who report ages 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in that population data, we had 1,639,123 people reporting themselves to be 1 year old. But also we have people 332,233 people here reporting themselves to be 60 years old. So therefore, to be able to calculate age heaping using Whipple's index, this is the formula we use. The formula we use is that you add all the populations, all the number of people who reported their ages between the age 23 to 62, and their ages end with the number 5 or 0. That is why we sum up all figures between 23 to 63 to 62 years, whose numbers end with 5. Then we divide it by a fifth of the entire population that is aged 23 to 63. But like I said, I think John shared, sometimes this needs practice, but as well it needs time to go through more and more and be able to understand it. So you should take time off and be able to at least understand for yourself. But where you get stuck, like I said earlier, you can always come and be able to offer support where it is possible in there. So otherwise, that is all. And if you do not have any more questions, I would like to wish all of you a very good night.
Thank you.
All right.